Use promo code Chicago.
Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And if you've been a frequent listener to this program, you know what a fan I am of the amazing team at LISC Chicago. But as if they didn't have enough to amaze Chicago with their hard work, they have been sharing the stories of the Micro Market Recovery Program. And I would strongly encourage you to check out their website for so many stories and resources that they're putting together. So here to join us and tell us a truly remarkable story, I'm thrilled to be joined by the coordinator of that program, Jack Swenson, and Jeannie Oquendo. Jack and Jeannie, thank you so much for joining us on Get Down to Business.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to be here.
All right, fantastic. So the Micro Market Recovery Program is revitalizing blocks around Chicago. Jeannie, if you don't mind, share your story. Tell us how you've been impacted.
So 2 years ago, I actually purchased my home through the program, and it's an absolutely amazing program. It's helped me become, I'm a single mom of 3 kids, and it's helped me to become a homeowner for the first time. And it's something I probably wouldn't be able to do without this program.
It's incredible. So, Jeannie, where do you live?
So I live in West Humboldt Park.
West Humboldt Park. And when did you first start considering becoming a homeowner?
So I started in January of 2012. Mm-hmm. I went through NHS Housing Corporation, and so they kind of helped me through the process and introduced me to the program.
And are you a first-time home buyer?
Yes, I am.
You are a first-time home buyer. So I if you don't mind, tell us. I don't want to probe too much, but if you don't mind, tell us why you've been having these challenges and why sort of LISC was that lifesaver. And then we'll talk to Jack a little bit about the details of the program, because of course we want to make sure that Jeannie, you're not the only success story here.
Right. So, I mean, I guess the reason was I was trying to buy a home, obviously. So, as I said, I was a single mom, right, trying to buy a home. I don't make a lot of money. And what the program did was it offered me a chance to buy a home that I could actually afford, right, because that's usually the problem. We get into a home, right, and then we can't afford it. So, we're struggling, making ends meet, and, it's just not working out. But what the program does is it takes a building, right, an abandoned building. So the building I purchased had been abandoned since 2009 at least. And so it takes it, I bought the house. It helped me to revamp the whole house. So the whole house was redone from floors to piping to roofing, windows. Everything was redone.
Which must be amazing for the neighborhood in general.
Absolutely, right. And then what's really amazing is that as the neighbors saw the progress of someone's actually moving into that building, you could see them because, of course, as the owner, right, I was here almost every week. It's not every day, right, to check on progress and seeing how the house was. And the neighbors were absolutely like, oh, my God, like, are you renting? I was like, no, I bought the house. And they're like, oh, my God, it's amazing. Like, I'm so glad that someone's finally going to live here.
Well, congratulations. It must be amazing for you and for your children. They must be so happy.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely excited.
Yeah, and I hope that you're supporting the neighborhood, continuing that the economic development and the transformation in the neighborhood, supporting local small businesses. So, Jack Swenson, you are the Micro Market Recovery Program coordinator at LISC Chicago. LISC, of course, is the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and I think Jeannie's story really summarizes what LISC is all about. Jack, tell us the history of the program.
Well, thank you. And Jeannie's story really begins with the foreclosure crisis that we all is in the back of maybe in our distant memory now, but the foreclosure crisis of 2007, 8, and 9, when many Chicago residents lost their homes as a result of job loss or the types of mortgages that they found themselves in. And it had a disproportionate impact on some neighborhoods where many folks many homes ended up being vacant as a result of the people losing their homes to foreclosure. And as buildings became vacant, property values declined, and people moved away who might otherwise have stayed in the neighborhood. And it was kind of a downward spiral that was difficult to correct. The city and many of its partners stepped in initially and kind of on a building-by-building basis tried to acquire and rehab these buildings and find new owners for them. But over time, one of the things that they realized was that a block that was where there were multiple vacancies was not going to come back on its own. People weren't going to choose to move back on to that block and to buy a home because it simply didn't feel stable to them, and that as a result, in 2011, LISC, our organization, together with the city and some of our partners in the neighborhood, said, let's do this something a little bit differently. Let's target our resources to single blocks in a neighborhood, and let's try to address every problem on that block.
So, Jack, the full list of neighborhoods, obviously, folks can we'll make sure to share the website for LISC. But you're doing this closely in coordination with the city of Chicago.
That's correct. I mean, this really was a program that is substantially funded by the city. And
when you say funding, Jack, tell us a little bit more in detail about the program. What level of purchase assistance are you providing to families like Jeannie's that to enable them to potentially become first-time homebuyers?
Well, it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood, but one of the things we provide across the city is $15,000 in down payment assistance, which reduces the cost of acquisition. The other, and maybe to go back to the story of the 500 block of Central Park, which is really Jeannie's story. When we started working with neighborhood housing services in West Humboldt Park, that block had 7 vacant buildings, and literally over half the buildings were vacant. 5 were 2 flats, and 2 were multifamily buildings. Excuse me. And what we did was set about trying to figure out how to get access to those buildings, and we, working with our community partners, we got them into court. Our community partners took responsibility for the buildings in what's called receivership. Over time, they were able to through the courts, to foreclose on their liens and actually get ownership of the building. And then working with the neighbors, began to identify people like Jeannie who were interested in becoming homeowners.
So, I want to go back to Jeannie for a quick moment. Jeannie, while obviously LISC provided a lot of support to you, I know that you've shared in the past with many folks out there, and the story has come back to me, that you've wanted to call West Humboldt Park home. Tell us why that was so important to you, and I think it's really important to say that while the support that you've gotten, certainly it sounds like it was extremely helpful. You are what's been called a neighborhood leader, and that's remarkable. So why West Humboldt Park? Why did you decide to call the neighborhood home?
Part of the reason is I grew up in Humboldt Park. So Humboldt Park has always been home for me. But also where I live, it's only 5 minutes from my parents. So that was really important because they're older. And so I needed to be close to them.
Well, it's transformational for the neighborhood. You're able to support your family, and I know that with the kids, this allows you to get to other schools around the city in your position as a bilingual educator for the YWCA of Metropolitan Chicago, which is fantastic. Jack, back to you real quick. We've got only about 30 seconds remaining, and I want to make sure our listeners can find out more about the program and more about the fantastic work of LISC Chicago. How can people get in touch with to learn more?
Well, they can go to our website, and I think you got there, ChicagoLISC.org, and find out information about the Micro Market Recovery Program. They can also go to the City of Chicago's website, City of Chicago Micro Market Recovery Program, and from there there'll be contact information.
Fantastic. Well,
about,
Jack, we've got to run. LISC Chicago, be sure to check it out. More about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship coming up right after this very quick break. You're listening to Get Down to Business.
Not a day goes by